They say there's no good news.
There's no good news.
Hello, hello. Well, guess what, my freelancing friends? It appears that we have a friend we probably didn't even know about. Let Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer tell it. And we have a powerful ally in Congress. Listen to what Schumer said this month during a live stream from members of the Freelancers Union.
In any way I can help the freelancers, I'm going to do it. I love you guys.
Oh my, this dude pulled out the L word. Okay. Well, at least we have one thing in common. He loves us and we love us too. So, Mr. Schumer, is there anything else you would like to add to your Friend of Freelancers application before we convene to dig into your record?
And I'll keep fighting for you all the way.
Ooh, we got us a feisty one. Chuck the Fighter. Okay. We see you, Chuck. Mr. Schumer, Senate Majority Leader. But is that just talk? That's what freelancers need to know. What, if anything, has Chuck Schumer done for us? And what, if anything, does he plan to do? And we're going to dig into that right now. Shall we? Okay, so in March 2020, after the pandemic hit and we were quickly spiraling down into this economic crisis, you'll remember that the CARES Act was passed. And the CARES Act catered to freelancers and self-employed creatives in a way that it was nearly historic for us, for freelancers. That bill provided pandemic unemployment assistance, which is, most people just call it PUA. And that gave freelancers $600 a week in unemployment benefits. I mean, unemployment for freelancers, that's like unheard of. So that was major. Self-employed people could also tap into the EIDL program. And I'm not talking about self-employed people that are LLC'd and those type of things. I'm talking about just independent, self-employed, freelance people could tap into this program called Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or EIDL. So what EIDL did, at least at one point, was that it would provide you a $1,000 cash advance within 3 days for each employee, up to 10 employees. So you could get up to $10,000 in your account within like 3 business days. But of course, I mean, for most freelancers, there's only one employee, which is, yourself. So there was $1,000 advance. And then you could also get these income-based loans with extremely low interest rates. You didn't have to start paying them back until sometime this year. So people who got EIDL loans, they still haven't started paying unless they just want to. And those payments are spread over 30 years. So the payment amounts are really, really low. On top of that, freelancers also got included in PPP, which is the Payroll Protection Program. And that was amazing because, once again, you didn't have to be LLC'd or, you didn't have to have any type of formal business. You just had to prove that you had freelance income, which a lot of people could do with just 1099s. So PPP, what that allowed you to do was you could take out loans to pay yourself and or cover certain business related expenses. And as long as you followed minimal requirements, you could ask for 100% forgiveness and that loan just went away. So that was basically like free money for freelancers whose income took a hit, which was a lot of freelancers. But anyway, Schumer takes credit for those benefits. He said no one else was thinking about what freelancers needed. As a matter of fact, I'll just let him say it.
And I pushed real hard. I had to explain a lot to a lot of people, but thank God the freelancers are included in so many of these programs.
So apparently, according to his story, he went out of his way to find out how the government could help us, help freelancers. And, he pushed hard to make it happen. And it happened. And if that's indeed what went down, round of applause to you, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. I mean, I would call for a standing ovation, but I actually think that's a little over the top, because in reality, tax-paying freelancers shouldn't need to be thankful to be treated like other taxpayers. It's just long overdue that we start getting the same type of treatment as everyone else. But you know what? I'm not even going to get started on that topic today, because that could take us into well, we're just not going to go there, okay?
Ooh.
Anyway, here's the problem with the CARES Act. And I'll let Schumer tell you, since he recognizes that there was an issue and he explained how it came about.
And in that first bill, we did a whole lot of good. Here was the problem. Everyone thought at that point that COVID would be gone by the summer. So the bill had a shelf life. It wasn't gone by the summer, and we wanted to act that summer. Speaker Pelosi and I put together something that was big and bold called the HEROES Act. Mitch McConnell and the Republicans said no. First, he said, let's have a pause. Well, people are suffering. People are losing their jobs. They're not able to pay the rent. They're not able to feed their families. Let's have a pause, he says.
So as he said, the HEROES Act didn't get done. The CARES Act was getting further and further in the rear view. Basically, for a lot of people, it was already out of sight. And finally, in December, these folks up on Capitol Hill, our elected representatives, they were finally able to get something done, and they passed another bill. So here's what that bill brought us basically in 2021, because by the time they hammered out the details, we were moving into a new year. But nonetheless, when I go through these, I want you to keep in mind that there are a bunch of general benefits that apply to the masses, like the $600 payments, additional SNAP benefits, rental aid, vaccine funding, things like that, which, also includes us. But what we're focused on is those things that are like closely linked to being freelance, self-employed, things that are related to our business and our employment status. So for starters, that $900 million relief package, it extended the PUA for 11 additional weeks. So that's more unemployment for freelancers. So instead of freelancers or anyone who is getting federally funded unemployment benefits being able to draw for a maximum of 39 weeks, now you can draw benefits for 50 weeks. And Schumer said he is the one who made sure that, freelancers, gig workers, and other non-traditional employment types were eligible for those benefits, that additional 11 week of benefits, which is great. But here's the thing that you should note about that extension is that it's $300 a week now, not $600 for everybody, freelancers and non-freelancers. And that money was supposed to start coming through in January of this year. That December relief package, it also provided an additional $100 a week for mixed wage earners. So what happened was there were a lot of freelancers who make a large portion, if not most of their money freelancing, but they also have part-time jobs. So for example, say you're a freelance writer, but you have a part-time waitressing job to supplement your income. In those cases, what would happen when, say, people lost a restaurant job and their freelance work was they could qualify for regular state-paid unemployment benefits. But that was only based on their W-2 wages or the income that they earned from their employer. So their freelance work wasn't factored in, and that made their unemployment benefits artificially low. So Schumer said that was one of the things that they were keen to address in the December bill. And what the federal government did was they started paying those mixed wage earners an extra $100 a week to help make up the difference for that artificially low amount that they were getting in unemployment benefits. And that $100 payment, that's called Mixed Earner Unemployment Compensation, or MEUC. And you might want to remember MEUC because we're going to talk about it in a little bit. So the December relief package, it also provided $325 million in small business funding. Now that included another big batch of funds for PPP. That was the Payroll Protection Program that I told you about earlier. So if you didn't get it the first time, you can tap it for the first time. And if you did get it the first time, you can also go back and get a second round of funding if you meet the qualifications. Which, remember, you can use that money, you can use PPP funds to pay yourself to run your business, and then you can ask for 100% forgiveness. And it is not difficult to get forgiveness. So if your revenue declined, if your income declined, you don't even have to be completely unemployed. But if your income declined, it's something that you should really look at, because it's like getting paid to run your business, which is what you would be doing anyway. But the federal government just pays you to keep yourself employed. Plus, the December bill is set aside billions of dollars for CDFIs, which are community development financial institutions, and MDIs, which are minority development institutions. And basically, both of these are the type of institutions that serve low income, moderate income, and communities of color. And that funding is supposed to help freelancers and small businesses apply for PPP loans. It's supposed to enhance those institutions, their lending capacity, give them the ability to provide grants to that demographic that they serve, and provide financial assistance. So it basically, gave them an injection of money to do what they need to do to help the little guys and gals, of course. That small business funding also includes billions of dollars for something called Save the Stages. Now, this is a program that even news reports credit Chuck Schumer for prioritizing and for fighting really hard for. So basically, what it does is it provides money to the SBA, the Small Business Association, to make grants of up to $12 million to live entertainment venues and cultural businesses. So we're talking about your indie movie theaters, Broadway, museums, even stand-up comedy clubs, that type of thing. And the money can go to people like the operators, the producers, promoters, and they can use it for payroll, or they can use it for a list of other expenses. So Schumer was saying he realized that a lot of freelancers and a lot of independent workers, they rely on these businesses. These businesses are also a significant portion of the economy in New York, which he represents. So they're on his radar. And he said that the money will go to the little and the big. And that could actually be major, because according to the Freelancers Union, over 90% of its members that are in performing arts are out of work right now. Totally out of work. So that could be major in helping them. And Schumer is so proud of saving the stages that he literally has a Save the Stages mask. Yeah, that proud. So anyway, here's what he had to say about the importance of the arts and hipping his colleagues to the contribution that we make.
And I'm going to keep fighting to keep this program going as long as we have this problem, as long as we have this COVID problem. It's such a beautiful part of New York. People come from all over the country and all over the world to live in New York for the arts. And they're not all on Broadway. They're going to these live venues and performing. And, Jerry Seinfeld's helping us because he got his start in one of these venues. And so please write or call or tweet. Well, you can't tweet, but email the president and make sure that he knows you're for this. Okay, so we can get this going. We can keep this going. Okay, and we're also trying to get more money for the National Endowment of the Arts, the National Endowment of Humanities. The arts are, here's what I tell my colleagues, and this is not just true in New York City. This is true throughout the country. The arts are an economic engine.
So you heard what he said, and this is how he summarizes that whole December bill.
So it was a good bill. Could have been better, should have been bigger. Republicans and Trump were in charge. It was good.
So as far as Schumer's rating for COVID Relief 2.0 for freelancers or the self-employed giggers, whatever you want to call them, it seems like Schumer did his part to hold it down for the freelancers. It seems that way. But once again, that December bill, just like the CARES Act, has a shelf life. Most of those benefits are set to expire in March. So then what? And how about beyond COVID relief packages? What's the deal? Well, Looking forward, first off, Schumer said he's advocating to extend that December bill, which is basically set to wrap up in March. He's advocating to extend it until September. And his hope is by that time, if not before, enough people will be vaccinated that life will be returning to normal. If you've heard about a relief package that they're currently working on that's supposed to be over $1 trillion, that's President Biden's American Relief Plan, or ARP. And within that plan, which is still being negotiated at the time that this is being recorded, Schumer said he's seeking more money for Save the Stages. And remember that $100 addition to unemployment for mixed earners? Well, Schumer said he's open to discussing making the MEUC retroactive so that it would help compensate some of those people for the past time when they were being undercompensated for their unemployment. And he's also part of a push to bump the $300 a week unemployment payments up to $400. But here's a big one, and I'll let him tell you directly.
One of the most important elements of the CARES Act was the unemployment insurance, which I would like to see made permanent. That's a goal and dream of mine. You know, COVID revealed, friends, so many problems with our society. For instance, it showed what bad health care so many people of color, particularly poor people of color, got. COVID was the magnifying glass. Oh, everyone's saying, wow, many more black and brown people got COVID, many more died. Well, why? Because they got lousy health care. If you're an affluent person in a suburb and you have a pre-existing condition, say diabetes, it's taken care of. You live in the inner city, no one gives a hoot. Anyway, similarly, we saw how unemployment should be made permanent, and the expansion that we got in COVID for gig workers, for freelancers, for independent contractors, we'd like that to stay.
So Schumer discussed this more than once during the live stream. And I mean, if he were to make unemployment a permanent option for freelancers, I don't know. I think I would have to break down and go ahead and give him a standing ovation. Because yes, it is something that should have been done. But it was such a non-talking point a year ago. It was something that no one seemed to be even thinking about in any type of serious way. So if COVID were to come along and we were to come out on the other side with unemployment benefits for freelancers, that would be like a magic show to me. I'm really not sure I could comprehend. Every time I saw a member of Congress on TV, I would expect them to spin around and suddenly have on a cape and be like, gotcha. Anyway, Schumer said in ARP they're also working on more money for small business support. He didn't really go into detail about what that looks like or what it involves, so we'll just have to wait and see if there's anything that benefits or trickles down to us. Another thing Schumer talked about is working with Senator Elizabeth Warren to push President Biden to cancel $50,000 in student loan debt, which is something that he says, is important to freelancers. I haven't heard a lot of chatter about this personally, specifically in freelance circles, but I'm sure that there are a lot of freelancers who are burdened with student loan debt like everybody else. But anyway, according to Schumer, it will help a lot of freelancers and particularly people of color. And he claims that Biden can do this. He can wipe out this debt, $50,000 with an executive order. So this is not even something that has to go through Congress and be debated and, it might pass, it might fail. According to him, Biden can just do it with the stroke of a pen. And he is specifically calling on freelancers for support. They're trying to get 10 million letters, emails, and calls to the president in support of this initiative. So if you're interested in hopping on board and, being a part of that, they're referring to it as the Schumer-Warren bill. Now, a biggie in the long term. During that live stream, Schumer also touched on something else, which is Biden's plans for the PRO Act and its use of the ABC test, which is used to determine if freelancers should actually be classified as employees. So here's the thing, if you're not hip to this conversation, the ABC test has proven to be detrimental to freelancers. And it's a major concern for a lot of freelancers who are keeping up with what's going on. This is something that as a freelancer, as a self-employed person, you really need to be up on this. And I've done a podcast on the topic. But anyway, more about that later. So I wish Schumer would have had an opportunity to go into much more detail on this. Actually, it's a topic that's worthy of just its own town hall, its own discussion time. But anyway, here's what he said about the PRO Act and the ABC test.
Look, the PRO Act in general is something I'm supportive of. I believe the more unions we have in America, the better America will be. I believe one of the reasons the middle class has not had a good run for the last 10 or 15 years is the bosses have managed to both destroy some unions and not let unions grow. But the freelancers, as we learned even with the unemployment insurance, you're in a new and unusual situation. Not one size should fit all. And I'll be happy. PRO Act won't come up for a few months, but I'd be happy to work with you to make sure that freelancers are taken into account in the PRO Act and not make the same mistakes that were made in California.
So that response, that didn't really move my needle in either direction. Didn't make me feel good, didn't make me feel bad, not comfortable or uncomfortable, really. I would have liked him to take a stronger position and show that he understood a little bit more about how the ABC test affects freelancers. But maybe he doesn't. Maybe at this point, he still hasn't dug into it. But at least he is on record making a commitment to work to ensure that freelancers don't get burned. So, that's the start.
I'm the majority leader, so that, it's, as I said, it gives me joy, but a feeling of awe, humbleness. But I am going to fight for you every day. I believe that the government has an obligation to help average folks, poor people, and people in the middle class struggling to stay there. So I will be by your side. I think the Freelancers Union is one of the great things that's happened in New York in the last few years as a union guy. I think it's great. And the relationship between us, Raphael, you, me, and the freelancers will stay like this for as long as I'm around.
So to provide a little context, when he's saying we're going to stay tight like this, he's doing the little finger thing, when you hold your fingers up and you press them together, kind of like when you wrap them around and you're like, oh yeah, me and my homie, we're tight like this, we're A1s or whatever. So yeah, basically that's what he's saying. He's saying him and freelancers, we're homies. Chuck is team freelance. Oh, and when he called the name Raphael, he's talking about Raphael Espinal. Ahead of this podcast, I actually did an article about their relationship and how it could potentially be like a critical or important one for freelancers. So you might want to go check that out on nogoodwords.com. So now, I want to know, what do you think? Do you think we really have an ally at the head of the Senate? Is Chuck Schumer really going to fight for freelancers as hard as he says he will? I want to know. So I'm going to add a poll to the show notes on nogoodwords.com. I also hope that if you have anything more to say beyond the poll questions, that you'll do your thing in the comment section, or even drop me a comment or at me on social media so we can keep this going. Also, don't forget, if you are not up on the PRO Act and the ABC test and how that could be a game changer for freelancers, I will link that podcast and some other articles and resources in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on one of the 9 platforms where it's available. And if you want to show support, the Cash App and PayPal details are wherever you found this podcast. They will also be on the show notes. Any and everything is always appreciated. So if you don't know, I am Misha Anai, aka No Good Writer. I am the mouthpiece for this podcast, but the real brains behind this show is my co-host, the executive producer, the anonymous Canine. Yep, that's her. So, we don't tell you what to think, but we do tell you what to think about. Until next time, folks.